Hello, podcast listeners. Push your horn-rimmed glasses right squarely onto your nose and grab a pocket protector. We get nerdy with Tim Larson. Tim, who's an accomplished performer, has been published in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book, and so much more. We're going to dive deep into pop culture. We're going to talk about the changes in Fargo Moorhead for the better, and so many other great things. Plus, at the end of this podcast, you're going to get an all improvised segment that is really pee your pants funny. So you're going to love that. Plus, Tucker and I talk about something that has absolutely nothing to do with our guest for many, many minutes, and we tie it together with a bow. All this and more on JJ Meets World.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
As of the time of this recording, this podcast is available to you, the listener, for free. I know every now and then someone will retire a season's worth of episodes and then you've got to pay for them. But as of right now, we don't ever intend on having you pay for an episode of this. That being said, somewhere on the planet right now, somebody is downloading illegally a zip file of all of the JJ Meets World episodes. And you might think, well, why? They're all available for free. No, they want somebody who's already gone to the trouble of cutting out any sponsorship advertising, or maybe they've put it into, an FLC file or something like that. But there's somebody out there downloading this on a torrent site, and technically illegally because it's coming from an output that we didn't arrange for or intend. So here's the thing. I don't know what the statute of limitations is on illegal downloading, so I'm not going to admit that I ever have. But illegal downloading really it changed the world overnight. And you've got bands like Metallica, who obviously led the charge when Napster was becoming a thing. You had independent film and television companies who got involved and were online stalking through these websites to try and find users who uploaded an episode of NBC's Chuck 2 days after it aired. And my personal opinion is television and film companies were never going to embrace streaming content because it does not make them the type of money purchasing a product or watching it on television would. Syndication rights, the advent of things like Hulu has just crushed syndication rights, because I can find every episode of MASH on Netflix without having to sit through any commercials, and I can binge watch all that I want. So if it hadn't been for people illegally downloading and finding out that it wasn't just some hacker somewhere in a dark basement, is average Joes.
Yeah.
It was people who had full-time jobs, and
oftentimes it was merely because it didn't exist online. There was no ready access to it, and that's what they wanted, was ready access.
Yeah, they wanted to consume something in a manner that was convenient to them. And of course, people on the internet said, well, yeah, I can do that. I can take this taped, TiVo episode I have and put some kind of a converter box and upload it to BearShare.
I'll tell you one thing too. It hasn't just changed things like syndication deals and stuff like that. It's changed advertising completely, 100%. It's not like it used to be, because advertising on television, say, you buy, or let's say you're a TV station and you're a TV network and you've got a show and you're trying to find out how many people tune into the show. So you get this kind of rough number from a private company that you have to pay for. And that's like, and then what they do is they call a bunch of houses and go, hey, did you watch this show? And if they say yes, they write you down. And it doesn't give you even close to an exact number. It's more like a ballpark that you could use to do. But when advertisements are online and it's people's individual IP addresses that are dealing with it, you can measure everything that you couldn't measure before. You could measure your ROI. You could measure click-through. You could measure how long people stayed on the ad. You could measure how many of these ads drove someone then to a website to purchase something. And so, like advertising on television, the cost of it has actually gone down dramatically because it's just not worth as much anymore. And I've been saying this for years. And I'm not the only one. I think most of our generation has been saying this for years, that at some point, the idea of television being this thing that's separate from the internet will just not exist anymore. I mean, it's barely separate anymore anyways. There's just sort of a different set of wires and infrastructure that you could get it over, but it's obsolete and it costs so much to change and fix, and it's going to all just be one thing eventually. I wouldn't be surprised if most movie theaters tend to go away, because you'll be able to get stuff on demand on home theaters that are already awesome at low cost.
I actually beg to differ with you on that, because I think movie theaters are just going to get more premium, and the thing that people are going to seek is that group experience. I think what we've seen because of this is when Titanic came out, Titanic was in theaters for something insane like 18 months. But take even the most popular films of the last 5 years, they've maybe 3 months at most.
Well, I don't think we're actually in disagreement. I'm not saying they're going away or that they won't be a market for that. I'm saying I think eventually it will diminish, and not just because of the advent of the internet. It's also the mass amount of just distractions that are out there that compete for a movie's time. Plus, the relationship between studios and movie theaters has been one-sided forever, and it becomes even more one-sided as time goes on. And now,
it's like a farmer with a potato baby and a French fry factory.
Basically. So when movie theaters don't really call any of the shots, it's not really up to them of how much longer they're around. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually there are just Disney theaters. So you want to see Disney movies in a theater, you go to a Disney theater. Otherwise, 4K TVs will be like $200 with great sound systems, and everyone's got fast internet. And not to take away from the group experience, which we just talked about in our previous podcast with Ben Larson. That was this Monday. But
what if someone's listening to this years from now, and then you just said this Monday, and they go, "Oh, they did another episode with Ben Larson? I thought he's been dead for years."
Well, they'll be in for a shock, won't they, JJ?
They will. I just think that
I hope Ben doesn't hear that. He's like, oh, what does JJ know that I don't?
I'm just saying, could we just acknowledge the fact that you and I are not very good at yet understanding how timelines work with podcasts, in the fact that people are listening to our first episode with Noel Scotch Anderson, and it sounds like it could have been recorded yesterday, or it could have been recorded in 2015.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I derailed. You were on a wonderful tangent, and
fine.
That was such a jerk move on my part.
No, not at all. I think you recognized when I'm running out of steam.
Stop interrupting me.
When I'm running out of steam.
Whose show is this?
I don't know. I could check. Let me log into all the accounts I control.
Yeah, well, listen, I guess someone's not getting his Amazon wish list fulfilled. I want to circle back to something real quick.
Yeah.
That has to do with Amazon. So we talked about how advertising has become a pinpoint rather than a dartboard now.
Yes.
I know there are people who are like, what an invasion of my privacy. I typed an email to a friend and I mentioned that, I'm getting a fern, and now all of a sudden I'm getting all these Miracle-Gro ads, and that was my private email. I love it, and I'll tell you why. I have not had to see sit through a tampon commercial in 3 years. I hope that people who just don't need certain products, I hope that there are not toy commercials playing for someone who's in their mid 80s who hate children. I hope that children are not getting Celestro ads playing. These are things that I think are great, because you're getting me the information that I need, and I am the consumer you need. Now, if you really want to mess with that algorithm, every now and then just type some random words into an Amazon search
Yeah.
or a Google search. Google search telescopes. Barack Obama face mask.
Yeah.
JJ, and then we'll see. We'll see what ends up in your advertising.
Yeah, I know. I know what you're saying, and targeted marketing is not going away.
Nope.
It's made so much money; it will never go away. I think if I want to look at the downside or the possible downside, it's none of us really understand how much information about us is out there, right? And who knows what one could figure out about you if they had, say, your pattern of purchases for the past 6 months. Or anything else like that. Who has access to that data? How much of it should you be allowed to control versus not control? What does it take to have a system where you opt into that sort of data gathering instead of opt out? And I think most of the tech sector has known they could get in under the door because not a lot of people were anticipating the level of it. So what that means for the future, I don't know. I think if anything, I'm really interested to see what the politicians of the future, how their campaigns are run, because those will be the politicians that have had Facebook since they were born. Can you imagine if you and I had Facebook when we were kids?
Oh no,
No.
Thank God we
Oh
didn't.
my God.
Because I did stuff that was stupid when I was a kid. I'm sure you did stupid stuff as a kid, and the fact that no one had like a camera to videotape me doing a slip and slide buck naked, I really appreciate that. And kids today. I mean, heck, anybody today doesn't have that luxury, but luckily I got it all out of my system by the time I was 14 and
Yeah.
the first Motorola cell phones became big.
Yeah.
Let's do some direct marketing, shall we?
Okay.
Okay. We've been trying to get a really great sponsor on, and we want to get the Pampers Corporation to sponsor this because a lot of you have poopy pants.
Yep. A lot of you.
Or maybe your children have poopy pants. So
We hear from a lot of our audience, and the most commonly referred thing is that they're tired of pooping their pants so much when they listen to our show because they don't want to get up from what they're doing and stop listening. But they don't seem to realize they could take it with them to the bathroom. So that's silly. Don't poop your pants. Take your phone with you into the bathroom. That's what phones are for. And you can continue to listen to JJ Meets World while you're shoving one out.
So we're going to do some direct marketing right here to my friend and yours, Sarah Watson Curry.
Council member Sarah Watson Curry.
So what are the buzzwords we need to do to make sure that we get this episode right directly in front of Sarah Watson Curry? She has a baby.
Bicycle
Bicycle.
would be one.
Beard.
Civic duty.
Okay.
Granola. Short.
Somehow I feel like cribbage. I feel like she told me a story about how she used to play cribbage all the time.
Okay.
What else? What are other things that Sarah that's directly linked to Sarah
I
that
keep
could get
cycling back to bikes.
Bikes?
Bicycles.
You just want to say bicycles? Bicycles?
Can you imagine if Sarah wakes up one day and finds out she has a challenger in her district and she watches his first press conference and someone says, what do you see as the biggest issue facing your town right now? And he says, I think there are too many bicycle lanes. We don't need all these bicycle lanes. We got to get them out of here. I think Sarah would be galvanized into action.
Oh, I could see one of her eyes going cross for like a couple seconds and then like realigning, sort of like her brain had to reset.
Yeah. Sarah Watson Curry, by the way, is one of our favorite people.
Yeah.
She's
She's going to be a
amazing.
guest eventually.
Yeah.
And now she's going to be completely bombarded online by all of these things that we've mentioned and are now putting on the internet so that the internet can find her and be pushing these things towards her. So Pampers Corporation, if you think that that's good, we'll find individual people and families who've had babies and we'll just, we'll door to door that thing for 'em.
Regardless of how long ago they had that baby.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Doesn't matter.
No.
My parents were targeting them for Pampers. My dad's going to need it pretty soon anyways.
Right. Like Pampers, like what would you call Pampers for old people? Like Pampers Gray? Like what's the adult version of
Pampers Twilight.
Yeah.
I could see my dad too, like accidentally buying some infant ones. He's like, these are too small. I'll just tape some together.
I can see your dad, like somebody saying, hey, Facebook, Jonah's potty trained now, so we've got some diapers left over. and your dad going and picking those up rather than bringing them to like the YWCA or something like
Gently
that.
used. I could resell those for $20.
Sounds good. Have you ever heard of these diaper cakes? Think about making one. Think about being a baker. This is gonna be a tough segue.
We don't have to turn just yet. I mean, maybe something comes up that helps us steer towards Mr. Larson.
You know, I recently was on a boat, a fishing boat, the brand Larson. My favorite storm door brand, Larson.
Well,
son of Lar.
Tim is someone that we've been trying to get on the podcast for a long time.
We say that with every guest. Do you know that we've been trying to get this person on the podcast for a long time? It sounds like we are the second chance date.
Yeah,
we're the last ones asked to prom.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's okay. We still get to go to prom.
That's right.
That's okay.
We're a boutonniere. Maybe we might get a kiss.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a senior will ask us. You know, maybe that's how it'll work. And
if not, we do have that attractive cousin from 2 towns over who we could always get to go with us.
I met Tim in high school. You met Tim in high school. Tim has been a brilliant performer ever since then. Spent some time in California and came back to the Fargo-Moorhead area with his family, which is a huge coup for the theater culture in town here. We just had his brother on this past Monday.
Yeah.
Deal with that, listener. The previous episode to this episode.
Yeah. Listen to the last episode if you don't want to know what Tucker's talking about. Tim is an all-around awesome guy. He's very funny. Included in this podcast, you're going to get to hear something that is a first for us, which is we do some improv at the end, which don't be drinking any milk when you're listening to it, or the milk might squirt out your nose.
Or at least make sure it's chocolate milk so it smells good.
Ugh. Look like you're having like a hemorrhage of like crap out of your nose. Sick.
You need a Pampers.
Chocolate boogers. And on that note, let's get to Tim Larson.
On chocolate boogers. Let's segue to today's guest.
Tim Larson.
JJ Meets World.
Our guest today is Tim Larson, who I just found out is not related to Brie Larson. So most of my questions are being thrown out as we speak.
Sorry about that.
You misrepresented yourself on Facebook, if I'm going to be honest.
It's the only way I get people to speak with me face to face.
Is that right? Tim, welcome to JJ Meets World. We're
I'm excited to have you here. Yeah.
We've wanted to get you on as a guest for a long time, but it was really when we solidified the fact that your brother is also going to be a guest that we thought, well, this is a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
And so we need to get your other brother, Joe,
Let's do it.
on here.
Okay, so first of all, I need to bring up something, some old business.
Yeah.
When you told me, Tim's brother, we should do a podcast with him too. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I remembered when Tim had 2 photos in the yearbook and actually convinced me for the better part of an evening that he had a twin brother I had never met.
Yeah.
And that he was into sports and wasn't into the movie we were camping out for, and just decided that he was going to have nothing to do with it. So I was a little suspicious that this is a real person, but this is a real person we're talking about.
It's a real person. I have a real older brother, 2 older brothers, Ben and Joe. But what you're referring to is when I was in high school senior year, they had picture retakes. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do.
They had picture retakes in the gymnasium, and they just said, like, if you missed photos for the yearbook, come on in, get your picture redone. And I just saw it. I was walking by, and I was like, I'm going to get my picture taken. And so I went in, and they were like, what's your name? And I said, Tim Larson. But I think when they're putting the yearbook together, it just really confused them that there was like 2 pictures taken of me. And so they put my second picture right next to my first picture and took Randy Larson's spot, who's a real person, by the way. So, and the awkward part is that obviously if it's alphabetical, I've got a locker directly next to this guy. And so when the yearbooks come out for like a week after, I couldn't make eye contact with this guy because I knew like, oh, geez, I took his spot.
I pushed him out of the yearbook.
Yeah. But I had people in classes later on that week who'd be like, hey, man, do you have a brother? I didn't know that. So I just wrote it out for a while. I was like, yeah, it's Randy. He takes a lot of classes at home. He's independent study and stuff like that. So, but yeah,
Let's talk about other high school shenanigans that Tim Larson got involved with. So you were a senior when I was a sophomore.
yeah.
And I didn't really know you much in high school.
No, we were just far enough apart. I remember, so I was a part of Don Quixote's Improv at Fargo South. My first impression of you, JJ, was coming in. We were doing auditions for the improv group, and all these kids have been coming in and doing improv, and they were kind of okay. But this one particular person comes in, and he's got a bright Hawaiian shirt on. And I'm pretty sure you had some cargo shorts you were rocking at that point.
Khaki colored.
And you knocked it out of the park, but you were super quiet outside of that. And everyone was like, who is this guy? What's this guy?
That's so weird to think.
I know.
This guy's story.
So,
Do you want to know what one of the greatest days of my life was? Going and seeing I made it into Don Quixote's. That was one of the things I was like, oh my God, I might have a purpose.
Yeah.
So
well,
that
I
was a
mean, like
blast.
that, in a lot of ways, doing improv in high school was, I think, where I think a bunch of our friend groups like feel like we kind of maybe found some purpose, right?
And do you remember when auditions were? End of the year, right?
End of the year, yeah.
So now we had been in a play together. Not that makes a big difference or anything
You
like
thought that
that.
greased the wheels a bit?
Well,
or-
I was going to say we had spent a significant amount of time together. We, in fact, had traveled to another city on a bus together where I sat just adjacent to Tim
Who's this
on the
guy?
trip for the One Act Play Festival,
You're right. Okay. You're talking
which I
about-
referenced in another podcast, by the way.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. Well,
Do you remember my character's name? No, you were Kleinman.
I want to see if he
there was a lot of
remembers more
things
about
going
how
on
he
at
and I
that
met.
time.
Yeah.
There was a lot
There
of
was
things.
so much. So many things were happening.
Yeah.
No, I was only a sophomore. You were a senior. But I do recall hearing about some pretty amazing shenanigans. There was, of course, the great floor sweeper.
Yeah. Well,
incident.
we were doing improv rehearsal, I think, after school, and there was a janitor who had a golf cart, and he would come by and he'd park it to work on the vending machine or something. And I think he just knew like that we were, I mean, if you park a golf cart in front of a bunch of kids and just leave it there, you're tempting them, right?
It's the modern day forbidden fruit.
Right.
I
And
mean,
so-
if the Lord would put a golf cart in front of you and tempt you with it.
So yeah, we definitely in the middle of like we felt he was challenging us in that moment, but we didn't get it. Okay, like he hopped on in time, drove away, and looked at us like, "Nice try, buddies." I remember it very vividly. Like he gave us a look like, "Ha ha." Okay, so he drove it, but we were like, "Where do they?" I didn't know there's a golf cart inside the school, so we followed him down the hallways to find out where it was. Well, essentially, while school hours were happening, we somehow got into this room and hopped in the middle of class, just started buzzing through the hallways, full blast. And it definitely took a corner and left like rubber streaks on the brand new carpet at South. And yeah, we got pulled into the the principal's office about that. And I remember my mom always says that the principal called and was like, "We got to talk about your son. Like, there's some stuff that went on. We got to talk about it." And my mom's like, "Is everything all right? What's going on?" And he's like, "They stole a golf cart." And she was like, "Okay," like waiting for more, But like at high school, you got to be serious with kids because you're shaping young minds. But yeah, so we didn't do much worse than that. It was all just harmless fun.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it in perspective. The punishment you received was what? Setting up for a track meet?
That's correct. Yeah.
So Saturday?
Yeah, and we had to wipe down all the lockers one day. Like go around and wipe down all the lockers, which that was. I think we thought that was more cool to be like, yeah, we got in trouble.
Yeah.
We got to wipe down all these lockers.
You guys have always wanted to use this giant push broom. Well, we get to.
Yeah, suckers. So
Do you ever find that there are things that are menial, tedious labor, but you'd love to use the device that they use for that?
oh yeah.
For example, I've always wanted to push one of those giant 7-foot long mop brooms that they have
Right.
to see how I could, because I think I'd be good at wielding it.
Yep. Well, I mean, like a Zamboni doesn't seem like it's probably hard to drive, but if I would love to sit on a Zamboni and just cruise that for a couple hours, you know?
I mean, all you're doing is making power slides.
yeah,
over and over.
pretty much.
Sounds
Yeah.
amazing.
I'm sure when you're on it, you feel like you're just going so fast. Maybe not. I don't know.
I was just listening to another podcast, and Christopher Maloney was on it. You might remember him from What Hot American Summer or Law and Order SVU, and he was talking about how he had been offered a chance to ride a Zamboni, and he said, "Oh, can I drive it?" And they said, "No." He said, "Well, then I will not be riding on your Zamboni." And that was the end of his story. It was about how he thought he was a big enough celebrity where they were just going to let him drive it, but no, that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do?
Can two people fit in a Zamboni? Are they? I think they look like one-seaters to me.
I think one stands on the back. I think they put pegs.
So-
I think Zambonis are just like the BMX
For the
bikes.
mascots, maybe.
Are there
Like,
training Zambonis then with like a separate wheel so the driver can take over for you if you careen off the
Right.
rink at a high speed?
Yeah, who's training? What kind of apprenticeship do you need to get into Zamboniing? Zamboni.
I also like to think of the guys who like there's a dealership of Zambonis.
Zambonis were good for your grandfather.
Yeah.
They're good for your brother.
It's Stan Zambonis. Come on down. We got Zambonis, new Zambonis, used Zambonis. We got a Zamboni for you, Zamboni.
Yeah, ever since J.R. Zamboni emigrated here from South Africa.
But it was a weapon. It was a military vehicle in South Africa. It's been repurposed. So after high school, you moved out to California to go to school.
Yeah. Well, I think an important note, I actually, prior to moving out my senior year, I went to Trollwood. And that's where Tucker and I met because we were actually, it spurned one of the other things that I have a love for, which is we were in film class together with Greg Carlson, who was one of the guests you guys had on before. But that's where Tucker and I got to meet.
It's a good thing you brought that up.
Producing a little show called Trollwood News at Noon. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the clip ahead in time, but
We'll find it.
when JJ and I were talking about this episode,
Tucker set me up like this. He said, well, I don't know if it was on 3600 Seconds or if it was on Trollwood News at Noon.
I think it was
but
3600.
there was a thing, and I go, where Tim interviewed himself.
Because you had a recurring character. I'm blanking on the name.
Max Powers.
Max Powers. And so he would conduct interviews every episode.
Hard-hitting news reports.
News reports. And so then that was a big day for us because
We got to use the split
we
screen
used the split
technology.
screen technology and make it look like Tim was sitting next to himself.
Yeah.
And watching it get filmed was super fun too
Yeah.
because Tim had to take turns sitting in either side. And then
And like actually doing the timing.
Yeah.
It's funny because when we took that class, that was literally like right at the time that film was becoming digital and
Yep.
access was becoming easier because the first time I took the class, we were over at Cable Access and using the big machines, and you'd have to put a VHS tape in and then another VHS tape in and like rewind it back. And then you remember that?
Yep, Tim and I's first year, that would have been, there was only one video production class at Trollwood called just video production, and we would do Trollwood News at Noon.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was the last year that you would always do reel-to-reel linear editing.
Yep.
And then the next year we had
Literally
an iMac,
next year,
a
it was
Ruby
like a huge
iMac.
deal, an iMac, and we were all learning like, what?
What, you mean I
Digitally?
can arrange these clips in any order that I want?
Not linear editing.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So that was pretty nuts. That was a lot of fun. But that was, man, I kind of wish I could go back in time and do that again. Just
man.
for those classes. The funnest time I ever had as a teenager.
Oh yeah, so Greg did a great job because we threw out just ridiculous ideas, and he was always like, "All right, let's do it. Write a script."
It was a format that you could just try to try out all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And he was really good at guiding you without being heavy-handed.
Yep.
And he was the first adult that I ever met who would talk to a teenager as if he was taking them seriously.
Yep.
And I remember that just being huge.
Yep.
Also, the first year that we took it was the year that The Phantom Menace came out.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole class, we were all talking about how much we loved it. And Greg had to kind of bite his tongue and not
I
poo-poo
remember.
all of
I
our
remember
feelings
before
about
the
it.
movie came. Like, I also remember being in the class and watching a trailer for it before, like, we had seen it.
Okay.
I think, and like the Phantom Menace was playing in the trailer, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool! This is gonna be the most amazing thing," But
I remember
Well,
videotaping Duel of the Fates off of VH1 so I could watch it over and be like, what are those droids?
There
What
was
are
a
the droids?
that's how big it was. There was a music video for Duel of the Fates. You know, a Star Wars theme song had a music video playing on MTV.
Can we also establish the fact that Duel of the Fates may be the worst written lyrics of all time because it's literally Duel of the Fates.
Yeah.
Duel of the Fates.
Yeah.
Duel.
Yeah, getting Gilbert Godfrey to sing it was a weird choice too.
Weird choice.
Yeah, odd choice. But you know,
And yet not the worst part about those movies.
No,
though.
not even close.
Yeah.
I also remember, was it Max Powers who did the exposés
Yeah.
on stuff like being cheated at the auto mechanic?
With our
Being-
good friend Dustin Buchanan, who's unfortunately no longer with us, but
Yeah.
he was in all those skits and was amazing as well.
That was actually, so that was really my bridge to Tim. Was Tim and Dustin were friends,
Yep.
and then I was hanging out with Dustin, so he was kind of the glue that bound all of us. The first time I ever really hung out with Tim was maybe the most embarrassed I've ever seen a human being in my entire
Just so you know,
life.
I was equally as embarrassed. Let's make
Oh, no,
sure
yeah,
that
no, no.
story is
I'm
important.
saying you're embarrassed. I've never seen a human being so embarrassed in my entire life.
Got it.
I'm without getting into too gritty of details. We bought a CD.
We're all about the gritty on this show. Come on.
at Spencer Gifts, so you know it's highbrow there.
Yeah. And it's an important detail. The CD came from the back of the store.
Yeah, right next to the black
Not in the
lights.
window.
Yeah. My dad, by the way, he used to tell me there was a cutoff in the store. He's like, you can go in there, but you can't go past this shelf, you know? And so, like, that's how you knew. So we were definitely way past that
Way
shelf.
past that shelf. And you were home from college for Thanksgiving or something like that. And so we picked up this CD, which was just a CD of women climaxing.
So here's the thing. In context, like, we picked it up, and all the names for the
Oh
tracks
God, they were so good.
were hilarious. And
Track
we're like,
5 was called Turd Burglar.
and we honestly thought, we were like, what could this be? Like, we probably didn't read it enough, you know, but I just remember thinking, like, these track titles are so hilarious. And I think Dustin was one who's like, I have to buy this.
So, and there's a classical piece of music that's playing in the background, and occasionally you get like a, well, now keep in mind,
This is so embarrassing.
Tim is home for some kind of, it may have been spring break or Thanksgiving, but it's cold outside, not freezing, but it's cold outside.
Yeah.
But we are driving in Dustin's car with all of the windows down and this blaring. So as we're passing by people who are walking on 13th Avenue, it's playing. And remember, Tim was wearing a hooded sweatshirt and he closed it so you could only see his eyeballs in the hood because he's like, what if my pastor sees me?
What if my
What am I
pastor
gonna
sees
do?
me? What if my luck is like we pull up to a red light and my dad's in the car next door?
Yeah.
Who is that over there? You know? And so, there was a lot of those moments back then too.
Yeah, a lot of good cringe-worthy moments.
Yeah.
That's what Dustin was good for. Dustin was always good at getting me into shenanigans. One time we got yelled at by a woman who owned a bed and breakfast because Dustin wouldn't stop farting.
Yeah.
And I was laughing so hard. And she's like, it is the middle of the night. I need to go to the doctor in the morning. And then, of course, we laugh harder because now we're like, we're keeping that old lady up. She's got to go to the doctor.
The things that you like take when you're in like high school, like as what you're going to be like a battle for you, like this old lady's, you know, like she can't tell us to stop making fart noises. We're going to make twice the fart noises now. It's pretty funny, like what you champion at that
Yeah,
age.
especially looking back and going like, oh, I wasted so many hours of my life. So many hours. Okay, so you go out to California,
But
and
yeah.
you're going to college.
Yep.
And
So, I mean, the first thing, I wanted to go to school for theater.
Okay.
And so my understanding is if you want to learn proper theater, you should probably take it outside of, North Dakota.
Sure.
To kind of be where there's more, a little bit more, at least at that time.
More
Fargo's-
opportunity.
Fargo is a completely different time than when I graduated in a different place. So, but I went to California. I went to a little liberal arts school out there and did 4 years. Got my theater degree, minor in communications and film and video while I was there, and met my wife while I was out there. And yeah, I lived out there for about maybe, I want to say 10 years total. And then we were involved in arts and a lot of different projects and stuff. And we had an opportunity. My wife, who has a background in theater as well. She was a stage manager on a tour of Peter Pan that was touring. And I got to go and tour with the show and do some of the merchandise for the show. But when it was done, we realized tour life was not for us, and we kind of wanted to come back to Fargo because it was a different town, cool art scene here, and we just wanted to be a part of like what was happening here. So kind of brought us back to here. But yeah.
Well,
so a lot of passion in our family for arts, and
we're
that kind of
richer
stuff.
in the community for having you guys because you swing for the fences and you bring some interesting stuff, and it's always nice to have an outside opinion on things to say like, hey guys, I saw this happen and maybe we should take a page out of this book.
I would also just add too that Tim is, in my opinion, as when it comes to performing on stage, is actually world class. Like you are
Tucker.
fantastic.
Thank you.
I mean, I knew that back in high school when I saw you just even improvise. And you've done shows at Theater B, and then the last time I saw you improv with Linebenders, I was just blown away. So
Did you see him in that one act play he was in his senior year?
I did not see that.
Great supporting cast. Just
I don't
amazing.
remember anybody. I thought it was a one-man show.
Oh, yeah.
And at some point, I know you'll probably get to it. We got to talk about the 305.
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting there.
All right.
I'm getting there.
Excellent.
So I
Teaser
wanted-
for the 305
Yep.
right now. It'll come in later.
I wanted to start with this. Did you really get a cease and desist letter from Disney when you're trying to make a Nightmare Before Christmas stage show? That was the rumor we all heard.
Really?
Yeah.
That is, I honestly don't know where that would come from.
Disney owns
No.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Disney. No, it was probably something we talked about at some point, but no, we did. I was involved in a version of 1984 when I was out in California.
Oh, yeah?
And it was like a group of friends putting on a version of 1984, and at the same time, a newer version was coming out that was done by Tim Robbins and his acting group, and he was directing the show. And we actually got a cease and desist letter from Tim Robbins and his group saying, please don't do 1984. We're doing it. Turns out, though, we were using this like old version from the 50s that was really bad. And so they couldn't stop us. And, in the end, our show was not great anyway.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are like 4 or 5 different play versions of
Yeah, there's a
1984.
lot of, it's just one of those shows that I think keeps getting redone, and it seems to always be relevant with the way that we're headed always.
There's
And
always
so-
a fear whenever there's an anxiety, especially in government, about becoming more authoritarian. And whenever that happens, 84 is always seems to be the
Definitely.
version lifted up.
Yeah, and with more like technology becoming more present, right? That's another piece that kind of fits into that. And so, yeah, several versions. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen like an updated version of the film yet,
I've been working on an adaptation of 1984 that's set in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and it's really more of a spring break comedy.
Okay.
But it's got robots in it, so I think that it might work.
I always, like, to me, the story was always missing pranks, really like panty raid, that kind of stuff.
I smell franchise, 1984, 1987, 1992.
Yep.
There are more years.
The nerds fight back.
1978, our dads. I think
2001,
that could work.
Malibu Spring Break.
Yeah. Starring Jamie Kennedy. So, okay, so you also did a production of Avenue Q too while you were out there, right?
Yeah, so I did a little stuff with that. It was primarily did a lot of promotional material. So we were working with the puppets and stuff, but they were doing a tour and we were kind of helping shape some of that stuff. And so there's a commercial out there you can see where I was a part of that. That's still relevant on the internet somewhere, but did a little bit of that.
The Delivery Boys.
The Delivery Boys was a sketch comedy group, part of my college. And so they were a group that the school used to kind of market the school, and they would send out to summer camps which was probably, honestly, that was a section of my life that was one of the coolest jobs I've ever had, which was literally like you get sent to a summer camp. It's a new one each week in different parts of the West Coast. And you spend a week hanging out with kids, playing camp games. In the evenings, we do sketch comedy for them and entertain, but also use an opportunity to just like talk to kids and like be a mentor during that time. And so that was one of the cooler jobs that I've been a part of, and kind of trying to recreate that my entire life of just, the arts and comedy and stuff. So but yeah, I did that for a while. And then there's this period that I think any creative person goes through when they're like just grasping at straws to do stuff. So you do all sorts of weird things. And so I was involved with like a sketch group with a couple friends and an improv group with another group of friends, and nothing was really sticking for a while. But a bunch of the people I went to school with and some of the former delivery boys were getting together, and we had some friends that did film, and somebody saw that like the MTV Movie Awards had a contest that they were doing where it was like a parody one of the movies that were hit this summer, and you know, you might get featured on the MTV Movie Awards. And so we kind of all got in a room together and we're like, yeah, this could be fun. Let's just make a quick 5-minute video. And somebody shot out the idea of like, hey, we got to do 300. 300 has been so big. Let's do a 300 parody. And at the same time, The Office was really big, the American version. And so somebody came up with the idea, like, let's do this amalgam, like a mockumentary version of 300. And that's where the 305 that you guys talked about came about. So
It's about the 5 guys who are guarding a goat path
yeah.
on the other side.
I think there's like one line in 300 where they say like, there's this goat path, you know, if we get this goat path, we can sneak around, you know? And so we took that one line and like used it as like, well, why didn't anyone guard that goat path? So we were like the guys who horribly screwed everything up for everybody. But we shot this short, and this was like when YouTube was becoming a thing.
Yeah.
Like it was really new. It was like people didn't know what to do with it yet. People were just putting weird cat videos up, which they still do, but nobody knew like what it would be used for. And so we uploaded our video to YouTube, and it was shown, I think, at the MTV Movie Awards. We didn't win, but the video at that time garnered over 1 million hits, which when YouTube first started, like that was a lot. Now it's like, you know, crazy amounts. But we had this production company come to us and said, this is hilarious, guys. It was just a 5-minute short. And they said, do you think you can make a full-length movie out of this? Well, when there's a bunch of like broke actors and creative people who like need money and want to be creative, we were all like, sure. But we didn't have a script. We didn't have anything. So the next like couple weeks were literally us. It was probably shot over the period of like a month on the weekends in a warehouse with a green screen. And we were just shooting this parody film of the 300. So yeah, that was one of those things that was a just one of those creative, silly things that just happened because we kind of just went for it. And yeah, it also got a release and was, you know, in Hollywood Video and Blockbuster.
Yeah, you could buy it in stores, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could rent it. I think Walmart had it, but
Yeah.
again, this was again right when media was changing.
Yeah.
So we were like on shelves at Blockbuster and Hollywood right as those stores were declaring bankruptcy
Yep.
because nobody was going to those places anymore. And so
You did have a pretty amazing Facebook update one day, though, where you're like, guess who's the #1 illegally downloaded film today
Yeah.
on Pirate Bay Torrent?
Woo! So yeah, that was a super cool experience. But yeah, it's still, you know, I think you can find it on Amazon Prime right now if you have Prime. I think it's a funny movie. I think it's cute. It's a parody movie, right? It's I always tell people like, you don't open up Mad Magazine looking for the New Yorker articles.
No.
You know? So, but yeah. So that was one of those moments.
Also, parodying the 300 though is sort of the perfect reason to use all green screen.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's the kind of parody that it's actually justified to only shoot it like that.
Yep.
That was one of the first movies that was basically entirely green screen for the most part,
Right.
and that was a big part of the marketing.
Yeah.
And so seeing like
Crazy filters and stuff. to
yeah,
kind
so
of
just seeing
shape
very
the whole
basic
image.
green screen, I think works really, really well for it.
Yeah, and I don't know if a lot of like independent filmmakers had said like, "Hey, we could probably do this too." Whoa, big attack!
Our baffling is falling
you
off
just
the
throw
wall.
it on the ground. It's pretty humid in here.
Yeah, a lot of filmmakers probably didn't like either possess the know-how to like create 3D stuff in the background yet. We were fortunate that we had somebody on our team that played around with those tools and made stuff. So that's kind of how we got lucky to make that. But
And that played at the Fargo Theater too. I remember
yeah, that
seeing
was
it
actually
there.
one thing, you know, so I mean, I love Fargo, and like I said, that was one thing that I really wanted to do was just to get it back here, mainly so my parents could have a chance to see this movie that I kept talking about. And so we got it in the Fargo Film Festival, and a bunch of the guys came here to screen the movie and everything. And yeah, I guess people really enjoyed it. So.
Yeah. Oh, it was that Tucker and I were working at the Fargo Theater at that time. In fact, a bunch of these guys drove straight from California to North Dakota, and then Tim wasn't one of them.
So I was one of the only people that couldn't make it. I don't remember what it was.
That's right.
Because I was telling everybody, you gotta go see this, but something came up and I couldn't attend. So that was a big bummer. But I do remember none of my friends, they're all California guys. They're not accustomed to the weather here. And they came and it was super freezing out. And so they're all sitting in their car with the heater running, but not like driving the car around or something. And so they essentially, their battery went dead. And I'm pretty sure one of them, there's video on the behind the scenes of the Fargo Film Festival on the DVD, and he didn't pack a coat at all the whole time he was here. And so, ill prepared.
Isn't it amazing when people
Creative
come
people.
here from different areas, the things that they take for granted?
Yeah.
It's the same thing for when I visit places and they assume that North Dakota, like Fargo, oh, do you guys still use outhouses? What's your
Yeah.
horse's name?
Yep.
Be like, well, it's Giddy Up, but not all of us have a horse. Okay, guys, just chill out.
Well, what do you think is the number one question that, when you tell somebody from not around here that you're from Fargo, what's the number one thing that people always say?
Like the movie?
Yep.
Like the movie, right? Yeah. Which is funny because, so my thought is always what part of the movie are they referring to? The cold weather, probably, or are they referring to the graphic murders that are taking place? Because both are accurate these days.
So I used to think people just thought Fargo, it's a neat little calling card, but for the most part, who cares? I'm going to tell you about the greatest night of my life for celebrity encounters, and it's all thanks to the movie Fargo. I went to a show called Unscripted at the Second City in Los Angeles, which was a hole in the wall. It sat maybe 30 people tops. And the premise of the show Unscripted is a little MST3K where they show an old public domain film and people from the Second City cast dub over the voices. And it started as kind of a game that some celebrities played that became a popular thing. So I'm there with our friend Jared Nillis, and I'm looking at the cast, and I'm going, wait a minute, Dan Castellaneta's doing a voice tonight?
Oh, nice.
I was like, what? And so he's hanging out at the bar, and there's hardly anybody else there yet. And so I went over, and I introduced myself, and he goes, oh, North Dakota, huh? I said, yes, sir, North Dakota. He goes, I hear horrible things about that state. And I'm like, well, it's different. And he goes, it's how different is it? And so we ended up having this maybe 10-minute long conversation about North Dakota, and he had a lot of questions that he wanted answered. And so I said, well, I'm going to go grab my seat. And this place isn't packed. There's maybe 20 people in here.
Wow.
And so I write but that's a thing in
That's
LA, right?
amazing.
You can throw a nickel and there's a famous person doing something. So I sit down and the woman who sits next to me goes, excuse me, pardon me, excuse me. And I look at her and I go, oh my God. It's Edie McClurg. Now, you might remember Edie McClurg from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles
yep.
as the rental car agent, or
Yep.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She's the secretary. Or Hogan's House. She was the next door neighbor. And so she sits down, and I turn to Jared, and I'm like, holy shit, it's Ferris Bueller's secretary from The Office. And so I said, Miss McClurg, I'm sorry to interrupt you. And she goes, where is that accent from? And I said, well, I'm from Fargo, North Dakota. And she goes, I have friends who live in Moorhead. And I go, what? And so we start having this conversation. She says, well, what do you like to do? And I said, well, I really like improvisation. She goes, oh, well, then you should meet Paul. And so she goes, Paul. And a guy comes over, and it's the wrong Paul. It wasn't the Paul she's gesturing to, but this Paul happens to be Paul Dooley, who you might remember from Waiting for Guffman.
Yep.
He's the man who talks about being probed.
Oh, yes.
Or in the movie Hairspray, he's the guy who owns, in the musical version, he owns the Hairspray company. And so she goes, Paul, this is JJ. He's from Fargo, North Dakota. And he goes, huh, I was on a PBS show where I played a character named Fargo, North Dakota. And I go, no way. And so we're chatting a little bit, and I said I'm in improv. And then Edie comes back, and she goes, this is the Paul I wanted you to meet. And she goes, Paul, this is JJ. JJ, you should go to Paul's improv school. They're the best. And so she introduced me to Paul Sills.
Wow.
Who is one of the founding members of the Compass Players, which became the Second City.
Yeah.
And we all sat together, and then we went and had a drink together afterwards. And these people were as excited to meet someone from North Dakota as someone from North Dakota was to meet all of them.
That's awesome.
It was a night that changed my life.
How do you top that? That's got to be your best celebrity meeting ever.
Without a doubt, yeah. Without a doubt.
Even more than Tobo?
Tobo was slightly different in that, like, I had a hand in buying his ticket to be here.
Got it.
It wasn't just a chance encounter for me.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
Now, if Tobo includes me in an upcoming episode of the Tobolowski Files, it might rank that up there a little bit more.
Do you have a celebrity who you've met that you, like, when you get in front of you, it totally just, like, fanboyed out or geeked? You're like, blah, 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 like, had one of those moments ever?
Oh, yeah, I definitely have. And I'm trying to think.
I went to Comic-Con in San Diego with my brother one year. And we went, this was like right
Brother
as
Randy.
the third season. Randy, yes.
Randy.
Yep.
I hate Randy.
Right as like the third season of Battlestar Galactica wrapped up. And we were walking through a thing, and there sitting at a table was the guy who plays Gaius Baltar. And I like go up to, and there was nobody standing around to get his autograph or anything. And I was like, whoa, what's happening? Why is he here? Should I talk to him? And so I remember like going up to him, and it was one of those moments where I was like, what can I say? What can I say? And the only thing that came out was like, you guys should have gotten an Emmy. And he's like, yeah, thanks. I like the show too. But like afterwards I was like, why did you say that? I mean,
Yeah.
That's probably a sensitive issue.
I've
for
been there
him.
before with a celebrity before. I've had one that was super awkward. It was at the Fargo Theater, and it was Bruce Campbell.
Ooh, yeah.
And his book had just come out, which I have a copy. I can't remember the title of it. And I think Bubba Hotep was maybe on the rounds or something like that.
I think it was the Man with the Screaming Brain is what he brought to Fargo on
maybe,
that trip.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah. So he was doing a signing afterwards, because he would stand on stage and he talked for a while. And I had brought a styrofoam cup that Walter Koenig had drunk out of, who played Chekhov on Star Trek, which is a whole other story. And I was going to get him to sign this thing. And they had announced that Bruce will only be signing things that are related to him.
Yeah.
So if it's Evil Dead related or the book or anything else, but nothing else. So I knew I wasn't going to get that sign. I thought, well, whatever, that's fine. Then you're in the line to go up, and I'm with my friend Amber. And we're up there and we're getting close. And Amber makes an observation that every time it's a female fan, he is very animated and talking and whatever. And then when it's a male fan, he sort of like shuts down and ignores them. And sure enough, we get up there and Amber's first, and he's, hey, how's it going? And she's like, yeah, I've got this theater company, Theater B. If you're ever in town and you want to catch a show, let us know. And he goes, oh, that'd be great. I love theater. And he's talking it up. And then it's my turn. And he's just cold fish again.
Womp, womp.
So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, like, whatever. And I just said, hey, thanks for coming here to Fargo. Really appreciate it, man. And he goes, yeah, well, and he looks up at me and he makes eye contact. And I can see him make a choice, right? Like, I'm going to try this time. Okay. It's obvious that I'm not giving the guy's attention. I'm going to try. So in an attempt for him to make conversation with me, he looks past me to the Marge wood carving statue that we have from the movie Fargo.
Right.
And he goes, so Marge, huh? And I look and I go, yeah, that's Marge. And he goes, I wonder how they got her here. And I said, probably in a truck or something. And that was it. That was the whole conversation.
Imagine how many of those like he probably experiences on a regular basis. It's probably just awkward conversation after awkward conversation for those guys.
So, but here's the real kicker of the story, and I can't believe you didn't mention this. Tucker has another friend who's at the same event, and she goes up and gets something signed. She goes, hey, I'm a waitress over at this
that's
Greasy
right.
Spoon Diner
That's
over
right,
here.
frying
You should
pan.
come over. And you say that, and it's like, yeah, okay, sure. And then, sure enough, an hour and a half later, he shows up by himself.
Yeah, that's right, because her shift was about to start. I can't remember her name because we had a lot of mutual friends, but yeah, she would be our waitress every time we'd go to Frying Pan. And yeah, then ended up showing up and getting some food.
And he hung out for a long time, if memory serves on that story.
I believe so.
Another tie back. The day they delivered the Marge statue, I ran into Tim in downtown Fargo.
Oh, yeah.
They have marching bands. It's a big deal because Fargo is now on DVD, and MGM sent like 10,000 copies to give out to the people. And they presented the Fargo Theater with the Marge. It's a giant wood carving of the character Marge Gunderson from the movie Fargo. And
It was a big deal. They were like, honoring Fargo with all this stuff.
there's a...
Was like K-Rudd wearing like any kind of like
no, I think she
mayoral
was. I think she was
band
kind
or-
of hanging on the back. I think their thought was maybe if they make it big enough, the Coen brothers will show up.
Yeah.
To to check things out, or be Bill Macy because he likes to be called Bill.
Yeah.
But so I bump into Tim at this event, and Tim is stoked because he's heard about an Arby's sandwich eating contest.
Hold on now. Back up. I'm flying home from college, and I'm sitting behind the person who's planning the contest, and I see on the computer like, and they're even having like calls, like they paid to have the phone on the airplane. They scan their card and they're like, yeah, we got to do this, and we're gonna give these DVDs. And so I'm like listening in all this stuff, and I hear them talk about this. Yeah, so okay, and then we'll give the winner gets this and this. If whoever eats the most Arby's, we'll do that part. And like I'm hearing these details, and I'm thinking, this is my chance. Like, I know something no one else knows. I know that they're going to all of a sudden just tell somebody, we need 5 people to come up and eat Arby's sandwiches. I didn't know that they had like pre-picked people in advance to do this contest.
which is a real shame.
That is a shame.
Because at that time, I was like, for probably 3 or 4 days leading up to that, I was like, okay, all right, Arby's sandwiches, I got to prepare. So I'd like... In my evenings, I just eat really big meals. Like right around the time of day I knew the contest was happening, and I was prepared. I went. Everybody's downtown Fargo streets were closed off, and they were like gearing up for it. And I was like, as soon as they talk about this, I'm going to be down front with my arms up. I got this because nobody else knows about this, right?
Nobody's prepared.
Nobody's prepared. And I said, now we're going to do this Arby's eating contest. There's big plates up on top filled with these Arby's RBQ sandwiches.
Yeah,
And
there's
I'm-
like 20 sandwiches per platter,
Per
and they've
platter.
taken a giant jug of horsey sauce and just
dumped
poured it all
and
over.
I'm like, yeah, one of those is mine. And then they're like, and we're gonna invite so and so who've all like, so they, I don't know how they found those people, but they already had them picked out to do the contest. And literally the rest of my day I was like, oh, I want to go die.
Well, do you remember the fact that like the person who won ate a sandwich and a
Yeah,
half?
they're like,
Oh,
I'm
that's
full.
nothing.
Yeah, and they had 5 minutes. I think
Oh,
part of the problem is like
please.
you give people 5 minutes, and it was really anticlimactic of all of us going, was it 3 minutes yet? Has it been 3 minutes?
Yeah, it's a long time to watch other people eat food. You
Yeah.
know? Like
What was the prize? Do you remember?
I don't.
Well, so
I would have
answered
I would have been happy just for the fame and for
Yeah,
you know.
I got to answer a trivia question. I got pulled up on stage at this event and answered a trivia question about the Coen brothers. And they're like, the Coen brothers are from what Minnesota town? And I said, Minneapolis. And they're like, congratulations, here's a DVD. Well, they sent way more DVDs than people showed up. So as you're leaving, there's a guy with just giant box. He goes, you
Yeah.
want like 5 or 6 of these? Or
I'm pretty sure my dad, like my mom, my dad, and I all left with the DVD. And my dad was like, this is the one where that guy gets in the wood chipper? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I don't want this. And he tossed it in the garbage. And I was like, Dad, you can't just throw it away. It's like a good movie. Like people, and he's like, nah, we got a couple copies. It's fine.
Has he ever visited the FM Visitors Bureau, which is essentially
Oh,
a shrine
with
to the
it
wood
there?
chipper?
Yeah, no, I don't know if he did.
have you been out there?
I did go out there.
When they
yeah.
give you the body parts to make it look like you're chipping
You
up
can actually
somebody?
shove somebody in. Yeah. I wanted to go out there when my daughter was young and just kind of hover
put her in
above
there?
it, but we never met up.
They rented the wood chipper from the rental company, and the rental company will gladly tell you about it because they have a picture of it hanging up in their store, and they're like, well, let me tell you something. We got to call it like 11 o'clock at night, and they had forgotten to get themselves a wood chipper. So they said, can you get this wood chipper up to Brainerd? And we said, sure, we can.
It's going to cost you extra.
Yeah, and then they get it up there. He goes, we get up there, and then we ask them what they're going to do, and they said, well, we're going to throw a bunch of red paint in it. And I said, whoa, you're going to what now?
You know how we've often hear, I think we've had conversations in the podcast before about, sometimes when you're in a town the size of Fargo, you get people who see themselves as maybe big fish in a little pond.
Yeah.
I think maybe anyone who lives here who sees themselves as a big deal needs to ask themselves the question, am I more famous than the wood chipper? And if you're not, you should probably be quiet.
That's a good litmus test. Like, kind of put yourself in check.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, let's go like this. J.J. Gordon, not as famous. Too Tall Tom Szymanski, more famous.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like when I say I'm from Fargo, North Dakota. When I'm in like New York, people are like, "Oh, you know J.J. Gordon?"
Right. Like, have you seen the wood chipper?
Have you-
But I'm thinking
It's usually
even
like, yeah.
there are very few Fargoans who are actually more famous than the wood chipper because people all over the country know about the wood chipper.
Oh, yeah.
If you know Fargo the movie, you know the wood chipper. So I'm thinking maybe Carson Wentz, who's not even from Fargo proper, he's from
He's
the area.
from Bismarck.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm trying to think of some.
Johnny Lang, but he technically claims that he's from Minneapolis
Yeah,
now.
and the wood chipper's still way more famous than him.
Yeah.
I don't think that many people actually know
And,
Johnny
uh,
Lang.
You know what I would say?
comparatively.
I mean, the wood chipper is obviously pivotal to that movie, but probably what just stands out more is just the accent, right? From the
Yeah.
movie, like that, the voice that they gave us.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when it was in theaters, there was a lot, like it was on the news, even how like they'd interview people and say, "What did you think of the film?" And people were like, "I didn't care for it," because
we don't sound like that.
we don't sound like that at all. I'm offended,
Yeah.
But they're using the accent in the
Yeah.
interview.
I think the people who got offended by it are just too close because you're watching yourself be lampooned a little bit.
Right.
And the honest to God truth is if you go into rural Minnesota, rural North Dakota, you're going to encounter people who talk like that and about going out on the boat. And
Hell, just go to Frying
yeah.
Pan and
Yeah.
just don't
Oh,
talk
for
for a few
sure.
minutes and listen. You're going to hear
Yeah.
it.
it's just like you go to the Jersey Shore and you're going to get some people who talk like people from the Jersey Shore,
Yep.
the television show, to be specific.
Yep.
You also have another claim to fame. You had a letter printed in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic
I
book.
did. That is a claim to fame for
So
me.
I'm guessing that was when it was Archie Comics that was publishing it.
No, it's the newest run
Okay.
by IDW.
Okay.
So, but I'm a big comic book nerd, and read a lot of books each week. But Ninja Turtles is like my jam for sure.
Was that the
Huge Ninja
first
Turtle
thing that
fan.
you remember being seriously into, or was there something before that you, as a kid?
It's funny. So like Ninja Turtles, I didn't have a ton of Ninja Turtles. I was probably partially influenced. Like I had a decent amount of them, but I lived near some kids that had the collection, right?
okay.
And I'd go to their house to play. And maybe that's where the nostalgia kicks in a little bit, is because like, with nostalgia, you're always trying to like recapture something. So now that I'm older, I'm like consuming Ninja Turtles as quick as they can put something out about it. And so, but yeah, so for whatever reason, I was like, you know what, I consider myself nerdy enough and that I feel comfortable to write the creators of this book a question and see if they respond.
What was your question?
I think I asked a question about like, there's so many different incarnations of the Ninja Turtles now, to these guys who are writing these stories, which actually, if you haven't read the current run on the Ninja Turtle comic, it is one of the better Ninja Turtle stories that's running right now. Like it's taken very seriously, great themes in it. But I wanted to ask, like, with all these different versions, is there one that these guys consider to be the true version of the Ninja Turtles? And what would they consider that to be? Because there's a lot of people that swear by the 80s cartoon. And their response was the original comic is obviously the original, like that universe would be the, Turtles Prime, you could say.
Okay.
And everything else from there on out. So I think that was the question. And then I think I asked them, like, I can't remember. I feel like I asked them if they'd ever team up with Daredevil or something like that, because I'd love to see that. But
Because of the origin
Right,
of them,
yeah.
being basically a not everyone knows it, but if you're a Ninja Turtles nerd like us, you will know it, that the original Ninja Turtles were a parody of Frank Miller's run on Daredevil, which was ultra-violent, and he was fighting a band of ninja thieves called the Hand, which is why the Turtles fought the Foot.
Yep.
And it kind of progressed from there. It was really just
Yeah.
a joke.
And a lot of people think that, and I think it's even been alluded to, that the truck that spills the canister of ooze that creates the turtles is the same truck that spills the ooze that goes into, Daredevil's eyes.
Interesting.
And so it's kind of supposed to be like a little nod to the same thing that created
Gotcha.
both. But yeah, so I'm a huge Turtles fan, and highly recommend people to read that.
I would definitely sign on for the 80s cartoon because that was my introduction to it. I think a lot of it comes from that, right?
Yep.
My introduction to the X-Men was the Fox cartoon when Jim Lee they had revamped it in the early 90s. So that has a special place in my heart. I remember the moment going to a babysitter's house as a kid and being like, what is this? I'd never seen this before.
Yeah.
And Shredder was on the screen.
What's great about the Fox one is that's when somebody said like, hey, look, why don't we tell actual Ninja Turtle stories over a period of a couple episodes and not just have like a mutant of the week, right? Because that's what 80s was all about. But like actually,
or different adventures that have a beginning and an ending.
Yeah, actually tell like a narrative story, not just a silly like, whoa, this pizza turned into a slime,
You're talking about the X-Men Fox?
Yeah, it was like the 2005 version of the Turtles. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the 1992 Fox X-Men.
Oh, X-Men. Sorry. Yeah, that's what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, I saw where you both were going, and I thought,
there was a little confusing there.
You should have interjected sooner.
Well, what I wanted to
Shame
say
on you.
was, have you guys seen that made-for-TV movie they did? So when they rebooted the animated Turtle series, and it was a little darker and a little more serious and gritty, even though it was on Nickelodeon, was it still at the time? They did a crossover film where the Turtles from the 90s were in it, and all of the Turtles in the darker version were like, why are these guys so goofy? Why do they think this is so, why are they treating everything like it's a sight gag?
Yeah.
And and then at one point they cross over into the black and white, like original Turtles from the comic strip or from the comic book. It's a phenomenal little crossover movie that they did. It's a lot of fun.
I also really remember because I had a few of the Archie comics.
Archies are good too, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have anything that completed a storyline. And so the first one I had, the turtles are getting spit out onto this planet by this floating cow head that apparently is like a transport vehicle. And then Raphael was completely covered in black, and they were parodying the symbiote costume that Spider-Man had at the time. And there was no explanation given. And as a kid, I was like, what is going on here?
Right.
This is crazy. And for the longest time, it was a mystery. So I have a special spot in my heart for those issues as well.
I love it when creators can like retell or give new details about a character that none of us knew before. Like when you think you know everything about a character and then they reveal something and you're like, wait a second. And it makes you rethink everything before. And there's this kind of a B-list character in the Turtles series called Renee, who's like a time traveler who like has the occasional pops up in one episode and it's like, hey, it's our friend Renee from the Time Traveler. And I always thought this character was kind of lame and like just like a device that the Turtles would use in certain episodes and stuff. But in the most recent version of the comic, they have this issue where this character shows up and is talking to the Turtles, and she's like, guys, what are you doing here? We got to go do this. And she's referencing something that she just did with the Ninja Turtles in a different version of the Ninja Turtles.
Oh, really?
So essentially what the creators have said is that this one sole character is the same character in each version of the Turtles.
Cool.
So like you've got a character that's she not only is she a time traveler, now we know that she goes between universes.
So they're essentially establishing that a multiverse is
There
here.
is a multiverse for the Ninja Turtles that fully exists. And now with movies like the one you're referencing, JJ, like that is technically canon because they've all like connected at some point. So
I love that.
yeah.
Remember how scandalous it was that Raphael said damn twice?
Yeah, in the movie.
Oh, that was awesome.
That was awesome.
I remember sitting in that audience, the lights going down, and the place going bonkers.
Yeah, like,
and they had people sitting in the aisle because apparently fire codes weren't a thing in '89. And like it just was people everywhere. It might have been the first movie I saw in the theater. Oh, it was great. I missed that feeling.
Yeah.
I had that feeling when I saw Infinity War.
Did you?
I did. But I wasn't there on opening night. I wasn't there with a massive crowd. It was just the level of excitement I don't think I felt since I'd
It's
seen
a
that
feeling
movie.
when you're sitting and watching a movie and you're like, I'm watching something that this is a special thing that like people took time to make.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
also then you think too, I remember being, I don't know, 7, 8 years old and reading Infinity War. And if someone had told me, did you know that they're going to make a movie of this
Right.
when you're older? I'd be like, "Pfft,
No,
they're never going to make
impossible.
anything besides Batman and Superman because that's all we'd ever had.
Change my diaper.
And I was in diapers. That's true for a long time until about 2 years ago.
I remember seeing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze, and I had a sticker book that went along with it, but I didn't want to take any of the stickers out of it because then I wouldn't have them anymore.
Right.
And I remember going and being like, okay, well, what are these two things? Where's Bebop and Rocksteady? And I didn't understand
That was a big deal when they had 2 new mutants in the movie.
Yeah.
As kids, we were like, who are these guys?
I want to say too that originally it was planned that there was going to be Bebop and
Yeah.
Rocksteady, and for some whatever weird reason, I mean, also if you look at the first movie and the second movie, even though the violence in the first movie is incredibly mild,
Yep.
the second movie they practically never use their weapons once, except to do goofy things with it. Michelangelo uses sausages instead of his nunchucks. Leonardo uses his swords to shove them into the ceiling
Yeah.
so he can kick someone in a goofy way. I don't think Raphael pulls a sai once.
Yep.
Donatello, if he has his bow staff, he's using it as a walking stick. So they really toned it down because the method was, let's sell some more action figures.
Yeah.
Was where it came down to. So I think a lot of those changes came that way. Like there was some executive who must have thought, no, these are cooler.
We'll get more toys out of it if we add a couple new. Yeah.
So the third one, of course, we can all agree was just a disappointing movie.
Womp
That was the
womp.
first movie I remember as a kid where I went and I was like, this isn't good, right? Like, right, everybody?
yeah.
This is something I love that's not good.
Do you know what mine was? The Mario Brothers movie. I
Oh.
remember going to the theater that night and being like, this is going to be incredible. How could this not be incredible? And I remember like it was yesterday driving home in a silent car from the
Because
Mario Brothers movie.
Your parents are like, well, we don't know if that was good or bad.
Like they can't even, they don't even know how to talk to me about it because it's just a mess, But as a kid, I was like, that was a mess.
Yeah. It was
That's
Batman and Robin for me.
Yeah. Oh.
I remember I taped the trailer because they premiered it on Entertainment
Yeah.
Tonight. And then I brought it to
Entertainment Tonight.
school and had my 6th grade teacher play it for the class.
gotta play
and
this.
then let me talk about it for a little bit.
That's awesome.
I was just today reading things you don't know about Batman and Robin. And one of the aspects of Batman and Robin was the toy company that made the toys got to sit in on script revisions and gave the filmmakers sketches of the toys they wanted to make that said like, well, you need to make a Batmobile that's got these fins that
Yeah.
come off the side so that we can market this separate add-on for the Batmobile.
Yeah.
And we need you to do this, and this has got to look like this. And so the more you read about it, the more you find out it's the money grab aspect of that is why that movie, one of the reasons it was so bad.
How many
You know-
times do you think George Clooney has apologized publicly for that
Do you know
movie?
he gives people money out of his own wallet?
Really?
Yeah, so if you go up to George Clooney, and this has been substantiated by several people, and they've said, hey, I paid to see Batman and Robin, and he'll give him like $550 out of his wallet. And he goes, I'm done apologizing for it because you can only say I'm sorry so many times.
Right.
But even he says he came in at the last second because Val Kilmer, I guess, diva'd it up and thought he was bigger than he was supposed to be. When he found out that Schwarzenegger was going to get top billing on it, he was like, well, forget that. And I mean, it's hard to say this, but that was a really good move on Val Kilmer's part.
yeah.
I just never understood why they called Batman Forever, and then Batman and Robin, when it should have been Batman and Robin, and then
Right.
Batman and Robin.
You know what I'd like to know?
And Batgirl.
I would like to know what movies exist that executives were involved in that were successes. Because we always hear about the ones that were like, Spider-Man 3 and all these that like have all this stuff that happens and people pushing extra characters and they don't work. And
Yeah, you need to not pay attention to all the foam that's just been
for those of
falling
you,
off your
for
side.
those of you listening, the studio is currently slowly falling apart behind me.
I mean, there were 10 up there. There are now 4.
I will say this.
There's a couple things going on. Humidity is one of them. It's really humid. in here
Sure,
right
blame the
Yeah.
humidity.
now. I always
just
go to
blame the humidity.
Yeah, humidity first.
Yeah.
So let's do something real quick that I haven't had a chance to do with another guest, which
Yeah.
is let's improvise a little bit on this. Let's do a little improv scene. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Like an improv audio scene
yeah,
kind of thing?
like a little audio scene,
Right.
right? Tucker, would you give us a springboard, please?
Lizard.
Lizard. I don't know. I don't know where it went.
What? You just lost it?
Well, I didn't mean to.
Kyle, you told me you would take responsibility for this pet. If we bought you this pet, your mother and I, don't cry. Look, don't cry, okay? Look. Dad's house is the fun house, right? Dad's house is the fun house. If there's a loose lizard in the house, that's exciting. That's fun.
It's a gecko.
Yeah,
It's not a lizard. It's a gecko.
okay, Kyle. All right. Well, look, he'll turn up. It would have been nice if it. Okay, I'm not going to lecture you on this. Do you know what you did wrong?
I do. And that's why I think that if you give me some hermit crabs, this will not happen again.
Okay, I'm gonna just hold on one second.
Okay.
Hey, hi.
Hi, I'm Officer Steven. Is this your lizard?
Is it a gecko?
Yeah.
Well, that's what he's telling us. He's also telling us he's 21, and I'm pretty sure he's not 21. We caught him trying to buy booze down the corner avenue, and I thought you might want to.
Kyle,
Yeah.
are you letting your lizard out to
Yeah.
buy?
Yeah. He told me he wanted to get a 6-pack.
Yeah, he had a credit card with him too. Although I'm not
sorry,
sure this
sir.
is his. This
I-
might be
I
yours.
took-
Are you Marcus de Brownlee?
Yes. Yes, I am Marcus de Brownling.
Well, it looks like he was trying to make a purchase on your credit card.
I'm sorry. I take full responsibility for this.
Hey, it's okay. We know he's young. He doesn't have any offenses before.
Kyle,
I
do you
just
have your
figured it
cage?
best to
Do you
bring
have
him
your
back home.
cage? Can you put him back in the cage, please?
Okay.
Can you take the 6-pack out, please? You don't put that in there.
Fine.
Okay. Thank you, officer.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
appreciate
Just
it.
just let him know. Sometimes we mess up a first time. Second time, it might be a little more serious. Okay.
I get it. Thank you, sir.
You
Thank
folks have a good night.
Thank you.
Dad, I'm sorry.
Did
I wanted to
Hold up.
I wanted to experiment with alcohol.
hold up? Did that officer just kiss you on the cheek?
Yeah. I'm part of the DARE program. And I dared him to always have to end every conversation with a kiss.
Hold on. The DARE program is
Where you dare cops to do stuff. Everyone knows that. Also,
and to be specific, you're saying you dared him to kiss you on the cheek?
every time he had to leave. It's about time that a male authority figure kisses me and shows me affection.
Okay. I don't know how to handle this correctly with you. Clearly, there's some problems going on in our house, and I know you're taking out in odd ways. You're obviously needing some affection from people. You have your lizard running to the store, making runs for you. I can't help it. okay?
I'm acting out, Dad.
That's clear, Kyle.
I found your VHS tape.
My audition reel?
Yeah. I don't even know why you want to be on Idol. That show's so played out.
You know what though? There's always someone else. It's like
it's
one season
not.
it ends and you hear every song, but then the next season it's like someone is better. What if I'm someone better?
You're not the Taylor Hicks.
Kyle, I want to change our life for the better. I'm tired of living in this
Then
5-bedroom house.
Get a job. Stop living off your inheritance, Dad.
You know what? Maybe I will get a job. Job.
Oh yeah. Maybe I'll stop befriending reptiles.
Wouldn't that be nice if we both decided to fix our... Oh, great. I wonder who this is.
Me too.
Hello.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry to come up here at 3 in the morning,
Sorry.
but I work all day long tomorrow, and I'm trying to get some sleep. And
I apologize,
I'm
Mr. Johnson.
what floor below you guys? If you could please just calm it down.
I apologize.
Sorry, Mr. Butterslide.
It's no problem. All right, you guys have a good night.
Oh, okay.
Okay, for starters, I don't know about that one.
He just kissed you on the cheek.
I know, I wasn't expecting that. I find that to be much more nefarious
Yeah.
than the other offenses. But I wish that we could go back to the way things were when you lived at home with mom and
I'm not happy about this either. Okay. There's been
Yeah.
a lot of things that have changed for us,
yeah.
and it hasn't been for the better.
No, I hate your bangs.
Your words hurt, Kyle.
You can't even go to a good salon. You went to a J.C. Penney. They don't know what they're doing.
It's like I am breaking my back over here. I'm saving up pennies. Maybe I go to the pennies, okay, to get my hair done. And maybe I get my photo prints done there so that I can go and get us passports. So maybe we can take that trip to Winnipeg. Okay?
For real?
Maybe.
Well, how are we supposed to bring my gecko?
Your gecko's not coming. I can't bring a gecko into the American Idol auditions.
What, you're not even going for the American Idol?
It's a
That's
2-for-1.
Canadian Idol?
My chances are better,
Who's even the judge in that?
I think it's
What, Robbie Williams or something?
Robbie Williams and Michael J. Fox, I believe, is one of them.
Oh, he wouldn't know musical talent if it bit him in the rear.
I beg to differ.
Keep your voice down or Mr. Butterslide's going to come up here again.
You're right. Okay, look.
Can we
it's
just-
3 a.m.
Yeah.
Can we just table?
Oh, I can hear you guys whispering up there. Could you keep the whispering down, please?
Sorry,
Thank you.
Mr. Butterslide. Okay, so now we can't whisper.
Can we use North American Sign Language?
Don't you take that tone with me.
And see.
And scene.
Wow.
That was good.
That was good. Hopefully it was good. Yeah.
You know what? You know what made me so happy about this? I have begged Tucker to improvise with me for years. And so I'm so glad that he wanted to get involved with this.
Honestly, I mean, if I had my way, you guys would do a one-off episode, and I could come in here every so many months and we'll do a whole improv episode.
Maybe we'll
that's
just
not a
spin
problem.
off into an improv podcast.
Let's do it.
You never
I think
know.
that sounds like a great
I
idea.
would
Plenty of
love
things-
that.
plenty
That
of-
was fun. I
plenty of
think
ways to
Tucker
do it.
should do some animation for us of what we just did.
I should learn animation and
Go to
then I could do
school.
it.
Guys, we're starting an Indiegogo to send Tucker to animation school
in Canada.
in Canada.
A good Canadian, Full Sail. Did anyone know someone who went to Full Sail? That be like, don't go to film school, go to Full Sail, and you'll be on an actual movie set. Get your degree in only 6 weeks.
I haven't made many good moves in my life, but one of them that I credit myself for and probably shouldn't is that I never received a higher education past high school. And I don't not in any debt.
Now I'm sitting pretty.
I'm sitting pretty
You
making this
dummies
podcast.
getting your education. You fools.
Sitting up there in your glass houses. I'll throw so many stones.
Joke's on you guys. I'm on a podcast.
Tim Larson was our guest today.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming in, Tim.
Thanks for
Let's have
having
you
me, guys.
again soon. Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. This is fun.
Awesome. This
And
was a blast.
Where can people kind of find you too? If you got any work online, I know you do a lot of theater. What do you got
Yep.
coming up?
What about are you still doing that blog?
Yeah. Oh, that's so I do have a blog. That's a good one. If you're trying to lose weight and you want to eat low carb, I actually have a low carb blog where I write weird product hacks and reviews. Fell into that because I lost a lot of weight.
Tim
at
has
one
a
point in my
tremendous
life.
weight loss story.
Yeah.
I mean,
And so low carb was what worked for me and kind of started it to help others around me. But I've been doing that for a couple of years. So you can always check out my blog. It's called Poor Man's Atkins. I do stuff with Theater B. So hoping to do some stuff in the future. Come check out a show at Theater B. The Line Benders, improv as always. And I'm also a parent. So more than anything, you'll probably see me at the Play Place in the West Eggers Mall. And I'll be the one shouting at the child to, put their shoes back on.
There are 4 of you in your family right now. Any chance that we might see a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles family themed Halloween?
We talked about it. We've only got so many years left where we can dictate what the costumes are. And last year was The Incredibles. I think this year, we'll see. Actually, we've been taking turns between my wife and I, so it's technically my turn this year. I've thrown out a couple pitches, and she's given me stern looks. So we'll see.
I want to know what those pitches would be because Cambria seems like she'd be like, yeah, let's do something creative and fun.
It's a tribute to the band Ween.
Yep.
Yeah, I was turned down immediately.
Yeah, didn't fly. A lot of the bands don't fly with Cambria. Kiss was not a hit.
I would love to see your family dressed like Kiss.
I'm thinking of if you guys were the Fantastic Four, who would
That'd be good.
Who would be what?
Yeah. I don't know. I suppose
Robbie the Robot is a possible
Robbie,
choice too.
I'd probably have to be the Thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, a couple up in there. But yeah, so a lot of different things going on. But hopefully in the theater community, you'll find me doing some stuff.
Cool beans. All right, Tim Larson, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
This one's in the bag.
JJ Meets World.
That wraps it up for this week's episode. Hey guys, listen, go to www.jjmeetsworld.com. That's where our Patreon account is. You can donate to that to help us keep the lights on. You can check out old episodes of JJ Meets World. If you subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, one of those places you consume the podcasts you love, you can actually stay up to date on brand new episodes that are being uploaded twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. If you want to check out more about what's going on, hit us up on social media, Facebook, Twitter, really wherever the kids are hanging out these days. Each and every week, JJ Meets World is produced by Tucker Lucas. If you want to know more about what Tucker has done or will be doing, you can go to moonbasemaria.com. If you're interested in booking JJ and his improv troupe, go to linebenders.com. Every week we say wrap it up, and I always think, wouldn't it be funny if we had a little picture of a mummy that we put on when they're listening to it and a little mummy image comes up. But one time I made myself a mummy, and then I was the last toilet paper in the house, and so I was really in a pickle.